WWII soldiers used dark red soap that killed deadly bacteria, traded cigarettes for survival, and hid escape maps inside ordinary playing cards. These classified tricks kept them alive when everything else failed. But which secret was so powerful that prisoners of war used it to escape enemy camps? During World War II, soldiers faced dangers that went way beyond fighting on battlefields. It wasn't just bullets and bombs that threatened them. They had to deal with hunger, freezing cold nights, terrible diseases, and never knowing if they would survive so far away from home. What kept these men alive wasn't always having bigger guns or better weapons. Most of the time, it came down to small, clever tricks. These methods worked so well that soldiers shared them in whispers. Sometimes these secrets were even marked as classified in military files. These weren't just ways to fight better. They were quiet, smart solutions that could mean staying alive or dying. And here's the most amazing part. Many of these tricks still work great today. Whether you love camping, live off the land, enjoy history, or just want to learn forgotten skills from the past, you'll find out that these wartime survival methods are much more than old stories. They're useful forever and surprisingly helpful even now. Let's go back to those years when people had to invent new ways to survive because they were desperate and had no choice. We'll discover the methods soldiers used to live through impossible situations. Out in the field, disease killed just as many soldiers as enemy bullets. Sickness like dysentery, typhus, and trench foot took thousands of lives. Soldiers got a special bar of soap made with carbolic acid. It was dark red, smelled really strong, and killed bacteria dead. It wasn't just for washing hands. Men used it to clean cuts and wounds, make their tools germ-free, and even clean their water containers. This soap was so important that losing a bar could mean weeks of terrible sickness or even death. Today, we still use this idea in antibacterial soaps and medical cleaners. But back then, it was a soldier's secret weapon against germs they couldn't even see. Picture being deep in enemy land, needing a hot meal but not being able to light a fire that enemies could spot. The answer was amazingly simple. Soldiers took an empty tin can and punched holes around the sides. Then they put a candle inside. The metal caught the heat and protected the flame from wind, making a hidden stove. Then they could toast bread, warm up water, and heat canned food without making smoke that would show enemies where they were hiding. Survival experts and outdoor lovers still use this trick today. Coffee wasn't just something to drink. It was really like emotional medicine. You know, troops would use the same coffee grounds 2 or even 3 times just to make their supply last longer. But here's the secret part. They sometimes mixed in toasted barley or chicory to keep the coffee taste strong. This didn't just give them warmth. It also kept their spirits up during those long, cold nights standing guard. Military leaders understood that keeping soldiers happy was kind of like having another weapon. Helping a soldier feel human, even for just a few minutes, was really as important as having enough bullets. When clean water wasn't around, some soldiers used a method that sounds weird but actually worked when they were desperate. They crumbled a loaf of thick, dark bread into a cloth and used it like a rough filter. Water poured through it would lose most of its dirt and stuff you could see floating in it. While it didn't kill germs, it was a really important first step before boiling the water or using chemicals to clean it. In survival situations, making dirty water even a little bit safer to drink could keep someone alive long enough to find better solutions. Even soldiers who didn't smoke always carried cigarettes. In places where enemies had taken over, a single cigarette could be traded for food, medicine, or even important information. During tense moments, cigarettes were also used to distract people. Soldiers offered them to enemy soldiers or prisoners as a friendly gesture, buying precious seconds to do what they needed to do. The military never officially said to use cigarettes this way, but stories from veterans proved that tobacco was as much a tool as it was something people were addicted to. It wasn't exciting or glamorous, but the sewing kit, sometimes sewn right into the uniform lining, was a soldier's quiet hero. In the cold, a ripped coat could cause frostbite. In the jungle, a torn mosquito net could lead to malaria. Soldiers fixed holes in clothing, made boots stronger, and even used thread to make fishing lines. The smallest bag of needles and thread could make important gear last months longer. When matches got wet and lighters stopped working, soldiers used a method they learned from farmers and sailors. They carried strips of cloth soaked in engine oil or animal fat stored in small tins. Even in the rain, these would catch a spark and burn long enough to light wet wood. It was dirty, made lots of smoke, and smelled awful, but it worked every single time. In the freezing winters of places like the Ardennes or the Russian front, this trick could mean staying warm and alive. Food rations often went bad in the humid jungles of the Pacific. Salt, which soldiers already needed in their diet, was used to preserve meat and fish they caught while marching. Soldiers rubbed it into their leather gear to stop mold from growing. They even packed it into their boots overnight to soak up moisture. A handful of salt was worth as much as gold in places where the air itself seemed to rot everything it touched. Uniform buttons had a way of falling off at the worst possible times. When they couldn't get replacements, soldiers rolled a piece of wet bread into a ball, pressed it flat, and poked 2 holes through the middle. Once it dried in the sun, it became surprisingly strong enough to keep a jacket closed through days of walking and fighting. It was a small fix that might seem funny, but in war, every bit of comfort and keeping things together really mattered. Maybe the most clever survival trick came in the form of what looked like a normal deck of playing cards. In some cases, these were specially made. When the cards got wet and were carefully peeled apart, they showed pieces of a detailed escape map printed inside. Prisoners of war used these maps to find their way back to friendly territory. This trick worked so well that after the war, it was used for Cold War spying. The amazing thing about these World War II survival methods isn't just that they worked so well. It's the way of thinking behind them. Soldiers didn't have endless supplies or modern equipment. They worked with whatever they had, coming up with new ideas under pressure, often using the simplest tools. These weren't survival tricks just for convenience. They were lifelines created in the harshest conditions you can imagine. In a world where technology rules everything, these wartime lessons remind us that being clever, adaptable, and resourceful are still the most powerful tools of all. The same candle in a tin stove that kept a soldier alive in 1944 can still keep a camper warm in 2025. The same homemade water filter could help in a disaster when modern systems stop working. History is full of big strategies and famous battles, but it's often the small, almost invisible acts of survival that really decide what happens. These are the skills worth remembering, keeping alive, and when we need to, using again. If you found these hidden pieces of history as interesting as the big battles, make sure to subscribe and share this video with other history fans. The past has more to teach us than we know, and some of its best lessons are still hidden in plain sight.